Something is happening in America. Not loudly, not with a press conference or a headline. It is happening slowly, quietly, in the spaces between things. In apartments built for one that were always meant to be for two. In wedding venues booking fewer Saturdays than they used to. In a generation of men who have looked at the life that was promised to them and quietly, without drama, decided to want something else. The marriage rate keeps falling. Every year, quietly, it falls a little more. And there is no shortage of explanations. Economic instability, housing costs, career priorities, all of these things are true. But underneath the economics is something more fundamental, a trust deficit. A generation of men who approach the institution of marriage not with hope and a ring, but with caution and calculation. Because marriage carries risks that the culture has not been particularly interested in discussing. And men, who are quite good at risk assessment, have looked at those risks and made a quiet decision. Not always consciously, not always with a speech, the way you quietly stop returning to a place that hurt you twice. You don't declare anything, you just stop going. Not very long ago, within living memory, marriage was simply what you did. Not because people were more romantic then, but because the structure of life required it. A man without a wife was considered incomplete. A woman without a husband was considered vulnerable. So they found each other. Sometimes happily, sometimes adequately. But they found each other, and the institution held. Not because it was perfect, because it was necessary. Women's empowerment is a good thing. Women building independent lives and financial security and careers of substance, good. Women not needing a man to survive, good. Women having the choice to marry or not marry on their own terms, good. All of this is good. And yet, a culture that tells women they do not need men, while simultaneously telling men they need to be needed, has created a very specific and unintended collision. The spark. The thing that cannot be manufactured or worked toward or earned through consistency. Either it is there or it is not. And what a generation of men slowly figured out is that the spark tends to attach itself to a very specific kind of man. Not necessarily the one who shows up. Not necessarily the one who remembered what you said last Tuesday. The spark tends to appear for the man who makes you slightly uncertain, who might not call, who you feel like you have to earn, And a generation of good men learned this at significant personal cost. Some adjusted. Many simply got tired and stopped. The men who check every box on that list are, by definition, a small percentage of the population. The top 10 or 15% by whatever measure you are using. And those men know it. Dating apps have made sure everyone knows exactly where they stand. And many ordinary men have sat with that information and drawn a quiet conclusion: that the game may not be worth playing anymore. The women are not the villains of this story. The men are not the victims. The empowerment movement is not the enemy. The problem is not that things changed. The problem is that things changed faster than the culture could catch up with. That one set of expectations was dismantled before a new one could be agreed upon. That a generation of men and women were handed fundamentally different maps to the same territory and told, "Good luck out there." And most of them are trying, but trying in different directions still leaves you far apart. And far apart, after a while, starts to feel like the point, when it was never supposed to be. There is a loneliness epidemic in America. It gets discussed in newspapers and policy papers and morning television, but the version that gets discussed tends to focus on the elderly, the isolated, the young, the loneliness of men in their 30s and 40s. Men who are healthy and employed and have phones full of contacts and are somehow, quietly, profoundly alone. That version gets considerably less attention because it is harder to sympathize with, because the cultural shorthand for a lonely man in his 30s is someone who failed, who didn't try hard enough, who has nobody to blame but himself. Male loneliness rarely announces itself. It does not post about it. It goes to the gym instead. It works longer hours. It gets into fitness and finance and self-improvement, because self-improvement at least gives the loneliness somewhere productive to go. A lonely man with a good career and a clean apartment is still a lonely man, but at least he has a project, and the project keeps the silence from getting too loud. And then the internet happened, and lonely men found each other. And in finding each other, they found, for many of them for the first time, permission to say the thing. To say, "I am trying and it is not working, and I do not fully understand why, and I am tired." Some of those conversations became genuinely productive, communities of men helping each other. Some became darker, anger finding an audience. But underneath both, Underneath the self-improvement forums and the bitter corners both was the same original feeling. I am alone, and I did not entirely choose this, and nobody seems particularly concerned. There were men who did everything right, who got educated and built careers and learned to communicate and showed up consistently without applause. Men who were, by every available measure, genuinely good partners, and who found repeatedly and confusingly that good was not quite the thing being asked for. And what these men say to each other when nobody is performing, underneath the confidence and the stoicism and the carefully maintained okayness, is actually quite simple. I wanted to build something with someone. I wanted to be chosen, not for my salary or my status, just chosen for showing up, for being real, for being present. I wanted that to be enough. Somewhere along the way, I got the message that it wasn't, and I am not entirely sure what to do with that. So I built a life anyway, and it is a good life, and I miss what it was supposed to include, and I will not say that out loud, but I miss it. This is not a story about villains. This is not a story where someone is wrong and someone is right. This is a story about a system, a set of expectations and cultural shifts that have together gradually produced a generation of lonely men and a marriage rate that keeps moving in one direction: down.